Gary Wilson, and welcome to tonight's live Path to Profit webinar. Welcome especially to all the new folks. We should have a lot of people on now from Pennsylvania and Massachusetts just in the last month or so. I know we've got a lot of Canadians on, so welcome aboard, and Californians. People from all over Oklahoma, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State. And by the way, for my schedule, before we get into too much more, I just want to give you guys a schedule here. I'm in Virginia right now. At the end of the week, I'll be in Delaware, which is just right up the road, right over the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. Next week, I'll be up in the Philadelphia area. Then I'm going to NARS. By the way, are any of you going to the NAR conference in Chicago? If you are, let me know, because perhaps we can have a little powwow there, all right? I actually know one of you already is going, but if you're going, please let me know. After NAR, I'll be in Maryland, and then New Jersey. And let's see, after that, I'll be taking off for Thanksgiving week, American Thanksgiving. I already had Canadian Thanksgiving. In a month of December, let's see, I'll be in the Bay Area the week of December 4th. I'll be in the Sacramento area the week of December 11th. And by the way, the few days after Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, I will be in the Detroit area just for like 3 classes, I think. And I've got to go to a mastermind in Phoenix. In any case, I just want to give you the schedule. So if any of you heard something on there, if I'm in an area where you already are and you want me to come meet you in person or come speak at a workshop you're putting on, please let me know at least a week in advance. In fact, I'll tell you, this Thursday night, I'll be in Newark, Delaware, speaking for one of our students, Ariana, up there. I'll be at her event after I teach at her Market Center. I taught her a couple years back. She's one of her, one of my oldest students, not age-wise, but she's been in the program quite a long time. So I'm glad to go there and do that. So in any case, just keep that in mind. We do that. I mean, honestly, I probably do it 6 times a year. I could do it more if you guys want me to. Just let me know. So in any case, welcome aboard to everybody. You'll notice you are by default in mute mode. If you're new, this is how this works. From time to time, I will unmute you, okay? And also, if if you have questions, just type them into your question box, and I will get to them in order I receive them. Let's see. Anything else I can think of? You do get the recording the very next day, okay? Also, always please look for the recording because Beverly also gives you a lot of information in those emails. She gives you the recording of the previous night's webinar first off. She also gives you the upcoming webinar schedule. She gives you updates to the training platforms. There's 3 platforms, Digital Chalk, My Investment Services, and the community site, okay? And sometimes the content itself changes. So in any case, definitely want to get the emails, guys, and look those over. So, all right, let's do this. I'm going to move into some questions here. We'll get into tonight's content here in a second. But I just wanted to get back to a couple questions here. So Miho's asking, Gary, are you coming to California? So Miho, I won't, I'm going to be in, let's see, Calabasas, okay? In the weekend of, let's see, November, boy, I can't remember what that is, I think 11th and 12th, but it's going to be real quick, fly in Friday night and fly back out Sunday night. Saturday night, I may have some time, but I was just going to drive down to Malibu and have dinner on the watch the sunset down there. But you're more than happy to, I'd be more than happy to have you come join me. I know you're down in the Orange County area. Maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle of something. I know there's a couple of the people that have been wanting to meet. So let's see if we can work something out there. And let's see, we had a question coming up before that from Kristen. Okay, so Kristen's asking, FYI, flippers here in Denver use a rule of thumb to make $35,000 or 50% of the repair cost instead of ARV percentage. So hey, I'm glad you brought that up, Kristen, because we're actually going to go over that tonight, okay? So you're in West LA. Yeah, okay, that's awesome. Oh, that's right, Miho. I know exactly where you are. You're in the, let's see, that was the, not Hollywood. You're kind of northeast of Hollywood. In any case, the team leader there is in my mastermind group. so, so let's do that. Let's get together. Okay, I'll be glad to meet you there. Let's see. This is Paul Sheehan. Hey, Paul. Hey, Paul. I got your email to go over tonight. All right. Says you're popping on. Can't stay. So, Paul, if you can't stay to the end, definitely get the webinar recording tomorrow. Okay. Well, let's do this, guys. Let's go ahead and pop into Paul's email, because Kristen's question actually leads directly into this. All right, so here's Paul's email. Paul, thank you for sharing this, and let me know it's okay to bring this up on the weekly webinar. Okay, for flips, why does ARV have to be minimum 30%? What's wrong with 20%? So what he's talking about, guys, is let me flip over to your training modules, and let me go back up to page. I'll go up here. Good piece. Hang on one second. Okay, here's ARV. All right. ARV is what it's the after repair value. Okay. After repair value is synonymous with appraisal value or market value of a property that is in marketable living condition. Standard, everything is functional. There's no deferred maintenance. It's assuming the place is move-in condition. That's ARV. In terms of flipping, i.e. investing, it's more specific to what the value of the property would be after you made some modifications. In other words, you buy a house that you make improvements to, and after the improvements are made, what would the house market for? And that's ARV. So the reason we suggest that your combination of the cost basis and the rehab cannot be more than 70% is of course by default that means we want to leave 30% in there for profit and overhead. So Paul, 20% of that would be profit. The other 10% would generally be overhead, the carrying cost of flipping a property. Okay. So now what Kristen was bringing up here, or let me go back to Kristen's email. Hang on one second. So Kristen's saying where she is, people have a hard dollar value. They're looking for a rule of thumb to make 35 grand profit. So if that was 20%, you multiply that times 5. Okay, that would be 175,000 sale price. Now I know where Kristen lives is I don't think you're going to sell anything for 175,000. It's going to be a lot more than that. So their expected rule of thumb is probably on a percentage basis, maybe more like 10%, something like that. Okay. Now she also does suggest that it could be 35,000 or 50% of the repair costs. In other words, I would make the assumption that they're putting $70,000 into repairs, and I'm okay with that type of an approach, guys. It's just that every market has different pricing patterns. So where Kristen lives, that may be a good rule of thumb for that area, which is south of Denver. Okay, but generally speaking, when we teach this and when we invest ourselves, it doesn't really matter if we're in Vancouver, San Francisco, Toronto, Montreal, New York, Boston, wherever. We're still looking for net in pocket 20%. All right, that's before taxes, by the way. Okay. In other words, we got to pay taxes on that 20%. But we know we're going to have overhead of generally about 10% on average. It's going to be, it could be higher in some areas. In some areas, transfer taxes are a lot more than other areas. In some areas, transfer taxes are 4%. In other areas, they're 1%. So if you figure 3% of $100,000 is $3,000, that number can add up pretty quickly. So if you're selling a $330,000 building or house, that 3% is going to be another $10,000 of expense. Okay, but back to this, just the rule of thumb is no matter where we are, we generally want to see 30% left over after cost basis and the cost of purchasing and the cost of repair, i.e. 30%. And again, 1/3 of that, 10% is overhead. The other 2/3 or 20% is for profit. Okay, so that's question number 1 from Paul. So let me see if I have any feedback on that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in your areas, because I know, like in San Francisco, I mean, the people that we're working with up there, I mean, we're flipping houses for over $2 million, okay? But in some of those neighborhoods, that's just what's going on in that area. So Cedric's asking, so Cedric, Miho wants to get together too. I know you're a little bit further south, and I know you're definitely in Orange County. She's up in LA. So we'll definitely do that. Okay, this is back to Paul's email. Let's get back to Paul's email. So ARV, hopefully I answered that question correctly or successfully, excuse me. Okay, in Toronto market is so different. Average price of a semi or detached is over 1 million. Can you be cash positive? Depends on rent. So I guess you're switching gears now to rental properties. And there are areas, you know, Paul, and I lived in you know, the Danforth summer of 2016, and I lived in a three unit building of basically 3 floors, and that thing was going for about 900 and something thousand. Okay, now the hard part is right now in Toronto, for any of you who are into Toronto or the area around Toronto, Mississauga, Hamilton, more closer, maybe like more Mississauga in those areas. In Toronto in the month of August, the average house, the average residential property had lost $171,000 in value compared to the prior August. The market was doing really good till springtime, and things started changing, and the volume dropped dramatically in August. Volume was down 25% year to year for the same month. In some neighborhoods, it was 50%. Okay, that's not what Paul's asking about. I just want to give you guys a little heads up here. If you're looking to invest, it's maybe a good time to be investing in and around Toronto, because prices are down, and usually prices drop rapidly but increase slowly. So that's one of the things we love about real estate, is it's a great place to invest because you have more time to react, okay, and prepare and react. So in any case, Paul, what a lot of people do, this is for everybody, whether you're in Toronto or other high price places like Washington, D.C., Boston, you know, San Francisco, LA, there are people who actually will invest with all cash, okay? And the reason is they don't want to have a negative cash flow. If they buy a property with a loan, they don't want to have a negative outflow every single month, okay? Basically, money coming out of your pocket. So what they'll do is they'll put down more cash. They might not pay all cash, but they'll pay something like 50% down and finance the other 50%. Bankers love that because there's less risk to the bank, all right? But people can be cash positive, Paul, by putting more cash up front. And a lot of people, believe it or not, actually do that. Sometimes they're simply parking their money. Sometimes they're just playing the capital appreciation game. They think, you know what, I'm going to get in now. Prices just dropped 25%. I'm going to grab it while the getting's good. And then over the next couple of years, the property should go back up. In this case, 33% to get back to even. Remember, if you have $1 million property and it lost 25% of value, it's now worth $750. But if you consider the current value is $750, and the house regains the $250,000, it regained 33% of that value of $750. In other words, $250,000 is 1/3 of $750. So just keep that in mind. Whether you're investing in real estate or stocks, you could always bear in mind what the percentages actually are, okay, and what your gains actually are depending on the current value of the properties, okay? So in any case, it does depend on rents, Paul, but the reality is it's all about the numbers, all the numbers, ratios, statistics, and actual data itself, the raw data. And the fact is 50% of the people in Toronto do rent. That means 50% of the properties are owned by investors, and they weren't all bought 100 years ago. Their properties are traded every single day. If you look at your deed transfers, like if you look at the your property tax records, you'll see properties being bought and sold every day that they're not on the MLS. I mean, you remember, you don't have to just use the MLS, guys. That's only one tool, all right? So in any case, now Paul's asking, the next question is about cap rate. I don't understand the meaning of cap rate. Why is Why is higher riskier 20% versus 10%? Means your NOI is higher. What's wrong with that? So, good question, Paul. Let's just flip back to the material. Cap rate represents reward and risk. It's one of the things that a lot of investors unfortunately struggle with. Like they understand reward, they understand risk, but usually what they're doing is they forget the fact that the higher the cap rate, generally the more risk there is. Okay, so cap rate, generally speaking, the higher the cap rate, the higher the return. Generally means there's more risk associated with that property. In other words, it might not be in the best area. It may be a property with a lot of deferred maintenance. It could be a number of factors, but that cap rate, Paul, is reflective of reward and risk. So let's just think about this. In an area where you have lower returns, in other words, a cap rate of say 3%, it's generally because those properties are better areas, more high priced, and because they're more high priced, the tenants you're getting are going to be more highly qualified than tenants that you'd be getting in an area where cap rate is lower. I mean, cap rate is higher, excuse me. So where cap rate is higher, that's a reflection of the cost basis relative to incoming rents. So if the actual cost of the property is low relative to the incoming rents, that generally means the area is a lower end area. That I'm not saying war zone or anything like that. I mean, that is part of the game. However, if you have a much higher priced area, more luxury properties, more higher end or affluent properties, they're going to cost more money, and the rents, by the way, never do keep up with the increased property values. In other words, if you look at say $100,000 property that's bringing in $1,000 a month rent, okay, that's a 12% return on an annual basis, 12,000 out of 100,000. Let's just say that's break even. That's just normal for the area. Okay, that's about an 8.5% cap rate. Okay, if you raise the price of the property value goes up to 200,000. Okay, that doesn't mean that the rents are going to go up and double. Also, it doesn't mean the rents are going to go from 1,000 a month to 2,000 a month. That's not what that means. In fact, the rents generally, increases in rents relative to costs of the property generally do not keep pace. So there is a certain point in time, there is a ratio, a sweet spot where the cost basis just justify the rents coming in, okay? And beyond that, you're going to have to just live with a lower cap rate. Now, you might have a better property in a better area, and no doubt about it. That's a good thing. In fact, the property will likely go up more in value than a property in the prior neighborhood, okay? So we just want to give you the basic mindset of cap rate, what it is and how it works. Now let's talk about how you actually calculate cap rate, okay? So this may make a lot more sense. If we look at this example here, you can see we're talking about a property that's listed for $80,000, right? $79,900, essentially $80,000, okay? And if you look furthermore at the net operating income, so look at the line here almost in the middle, it says net operating income. What that is on an annual basis, this is the cash flow that's coming in after non-debt expenses. In other words, what I mean is taxes, insurance, water, sewage, maintenance, garbage, repairs, maintenance, what have you. Those are all expenses that are not related to a loan. They're not related to debt, okay? When you calculate the cap rate, you do not include the debt service in that calculation. You only include the gross rents coming in and any expenses that are non-debt related coming out. That resulting dollar amount in this example is $10,793.54 for the year, okay? Now, the property was purchased for $70,000, okay? All right, the person buying it put down $14,000, financed $56,000. But what I want to do is focus on these two figures right here. the net operating income on an annual basis, in this example, $10,793.54, and the purchase price is $70,000. Cap rate is the formula of net operating income, in this example here, 10,000, right, divided by the purchase price. So you're dividing 10,793.54 by 70,000. That resulting ratio is 15.4%. That's not a bad cap rate. That means essentially, you know, if everything was static, you'd be making 15.4% on your purchase of this property. Now the reality is this area, and I've actually sold this house, and the area wasn't that bad, but it wasn't a high-end area. So it was like a lower middle, like a lower, you know, maybe a high C type area. Okay, probably not even low B, but high C, or middle C, high C. And as a result, sometimes there's going to be more, they're going to be older properties in this area. Older properties means more maintenance costs, more risk, higher chances of something major going to happen, like maybe a settling foundation or a cracked foundation. Maybe the old slate roof needs to be replaced. Maybe the wiring is going to need to be replaced. In other words, it has its, generally, in this example, this could be an older building. Another possibility for the higher cap rate on the risk side could also be because the area is not such a great area. It's okay, but you generally have higher crime rates. You'll have more rents that go unpaid, things like that, higher vacancy rates, okay? So there's a lot of things, Paul, that really make up the risk part of the equation. It's just generally speaking, when you see a higher cap rate, that higher return looks awful tempting, and it does, because I've been there before. It just means you're going to have to work a lot harder to get that return. You got to deal with more vacancies, more maintenance and repairs, and also potentially more uncollected rent. People just can't pay the rent. So that's why. That is it's a tricky, slippery slope. A lot of investors tend to ignore the risk side of the equation. They think 15.4%, how bad can it be? I'm going to make a lot of money to make up for the headaches. But believe me, it's an actual legitimate ratio that we've used for generations, and it's legitimate. You can't ignore it. It's part of our business, and if you're willing to stomach the higher risk, then by golly, go for it. Okay. The other thing too with these properties, for everybody here, generally they will not appreciate as much as the better properties. Okay. So in other words, that 15.4% cap rate likely will not change much over time. The property values are not going to change. The rents are not going to go up as much. It's just going to stay relatively static. We call it flatlining. That's what those properties do. They flatline. They just stay flat. Okay. So in any case, I wanted to go over that with you. Let me go back to Paul's questions here and make sure we're covered. Okay, we talked about cap rate. Okay. So Paul is asking, if I buy a property with tenants, maybe paying the same rent for 7 years, but prices have gone up 30% in the last 5 years, it's going to be tough to get a good return. Yeah, so in other words, Paul, if the rents are not commensurate, the rent increases are not commensurate with the property value increases, over time, what that means is your cap rate is going to be lower, obviously, in this example. But more importantly, you may have to put more cash into the property. You may have to finance less of the purchase price so that you don't have a negative cash flow. But by the way, the fact that the rents have not changed in 7 years, I would say that there's something that needs to be addressed there. I mean, if this is particular to Toronto, and I'm pretty familiar with Toronto, there were a lot of years where rents were going up and up and up and up. I mean, inventory was just extremely tight. Remember, everything's relative, guys. Remember, supply and demand. So if inventory is tight, it doesn't just mean that the properties themselves are going to be higher priced because there's not as many on the market. But also, just as importantly, there's generally going to be fewer properties for sale in general, and so those prices go up on the owner-occupant properties, single-family homes, condos, and townhomes and things like that, which means rents are going to have to increase to compensate. So anybody because there's fewer properties, all right, there's more people renting because it's harder to afford a house. what that does is that drives up the rents too. So generally speaking, that the Toronto market was tough on renters for a lot of years, you know. So in any case, I hope that answers your questions for you, Paul. I would say if there's a specific example you have, we should definitely look at it and see what's going on. I know the landlord-tenant law is pretty tough in Toronto. It is, and you know, most Boston, New Jersey, New York. You know, it's you know, out in LA, they really either owners sometimes have to jump through hoops to really progress in their rental business. Okay, so in any case, listen to the guys. I'm going to do a quick pause here, let you type in questions, and then we'll get to the questions, and then we'll go over into Kiana's email or next. Okay. Okay, so let's see questions. Okay, I think actually it looks like we're caught up on questions. Okay. All right, now how do I get out of that? Okay, so hang on 1 second. Okay, so let me do this. Let me go into the next email. This is going to be from Kiana, so Kionna. And here we go. So let that load up here, and I will. I'm going to probably have to show you. I'll probably have to go to the membership section. Matter of fact, let me do that, guys. I'm going to go into my investment services. So hang on 1 second here. My investment services. Okay. And by the way, everybody, if you're new to the program, please follow along here. I'm in myinvestmentservices.com. What I want to do is I'm going to click on the members area, okay? And from there, I'm going to click on the silver level, which is here. And once you got logged in for the first time, depending on your settings on your computer, every time you log in, it will likely, you have to pre-fill your login and password. So a couple things here. You'll see the community site way up top. Oh, and by the way, for all the new folks, definitely one of the first things you want to do is go here, click on login here to log in the community site, all right, initially right out of the gate, and create your profile on there. If you have not created your profile, you definitely want to do that like ASAP, okay? All right, so I just wanted to get past it. Now you notice here, there's all of the prior webinars are all, by the way, the what we loosely call the newsletters out here is actually called the Profit Booster. You should always be looking at that every month, okay? Now, down here is all the recorded webinars, okay? For those of you who are new, this goes back, I think, like 2.5 years. I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of material out here, all for you to download. You can strip off the audio by using a YouTube to MP3 converter, okay? But lots and lots of content. Now down here, and these are all the interviews we've done with different people over the last, not everybody's out here. We've just done a few of them. Let's see, some of the interviews. Yeah, I know where they are. They're actually in the webinars, okay? In any case, down to the marketing, all right? Here's the letters, booklets, tax strategies, calculators, you know, online sources like right, if you click on this, important free resources to gather data on people and places. So that has resources in there for US and Canada, okay? Cash flow worksheets, rehab sheets, all kinds of worksheets. Down here, there's additional resources for Canada. Again, Canada has more sophisticated tools than the US does. The US just has more data available, okay? But here's what we're going to go to. Kiana was asking about the booklet. So let's just bring up the booklet here, okay? And it's going to take a second, so let me bring this up. And there it is, okay? So let's get back to Kiana's question. Let me go back here and make sure we got it here. So, okay, Gary, how do I make the investor book? Okay, how do I schedule a 30 minutes phone call with you? So Kiana, I've got to get this to you. I don't know if I actually sent this to you. You can use what's called time trade. Okay, so everybody here, pay attention. I'm going to show you this. Hi, Kiana. Oops, I think I spelled it. No, I got it right. Okay. Please use time trade at the bottom to schedule a strategy call. So if you look here, guys, at the bottom of the email, okay, here's the link for time trade. Everybody should have that, okay? mytimetrade.com/book/W1P8H. 1W1P8H, okay? That's how you schedule strategy calls. So let me send this to Kiana, and we're going to go back into the booklet. Now I want to do is spend more of the time talking about this booklet, okay? But real quick, let me check for questions one more time here. Make sure everybody is okay. And it looks like you are. And I'm not sure why. So Paul, your question for some reason got stuck on here. I'm not sure what happened here, but that's okay. We'll go into the booklet. Okay, so the booklet. Kiana, and for everybody else, the first thing you want to do is download this onto your hard drive and save it. It's in Word format. Your computer, your version of Microsoft Office may reformat it, and that's okay. Okay, just go ahead and let that happen. And then we want to go ahead and take a look at this and make the changes that are necessary. First things first is this. The picture here is a picture of Pittsburgh, okay, because this is the model we use in the training class. We've got models out there for all the other different areas. I mean, my gosh, up in Hamilton, Canada, you know, North Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, right? What I'm getting at is take a picture from your area. Now, if you get the picture on the internet, we highly, highly encourage you to please purchase the photo, okay? Because then you have the legal right to reproduce the photo. So you definitely want to get the picture, because we definitely want you to use this photo. I mean, we want you to redo this, repeat this, and duplicate it over and over again, okay? And then, you know, when the recipient reads this question, or sorry, it's a statement where the smart money is, okay? And in mind, they're formulating the question, well, where is it? And you're going to give them the answer right here: investing in Pittsburgh real estate, or wherever you are, okay? You know, Oklahoma City real estate, you know, Des Moines, Iowa real estate. You know, there's all kinds of, wherever you are, you want to put that answer there. You're going to give them the answer, okay? All right, now the next thing is this. You always want to put your broker's name, and just most of your cases it's going to say either like Remax or Keller Williams, Berkshire Hathaway, Royal LePage. We've had a bunch of students in here from different brokerage companies. And then you provide your contact information, yours, not your broker's, but yours, name, email address, and phone number, okay? Now this is all old, although that phone number I think still works for Beverly. But that was my old brokerage company, okay? And that was the old website. Now, bear in mind, you have to be aware of your own state rules. So, Amiho, Cedric, everybody out in California, you do have to put on your California, your license ID, whether you're a broker or agent. Put on right here on the cover page, you got to put your broker's ID. Okay, in some states, like in Pennsylvania, the broker's name has to be bigger than your name. Does that make sense? In some states, that's not the case, but in a lot of states, your broker's name has to be bigger than your name, okay? So in any case, that's cover page right there, all right? Now, the next thing is the introductory letter. Now, I think this is quite lengthy. This is now several years old, but right now you want to start doing some more customizing. So you want to make this letter speak for you, okay? And you know, if it doesn't speak for you, that means it's going to be speaking for me, because I'm the one who wrote this probably, I don't know how many years ago, 10, 15 years ago, okay? So what you want to do is go through this and make sure it speaks about you and your area, but more importantly, don't spend all the time speaking about you. It should be speaking from you, but speaking to your recipient. So if you notice up here, let me just go up a little bit. This right here is actually name specific. Now this one here was used for doctors. Now, and whenever you're addressing doctors, you always want to refer to them as doctor and their last name. That's just how they want to be referred to. If it's most anybody else, you can say dear and then put it in their first name. So in most cases, we're going to have the first name here. So dear, dear Hall, right? Dear Miho, okay? Now in here, one of the things I recommend that we don't have it in here, I've just made this improvement over the years, is instead of naming all of my credentials and all this stuff about me, is put in there something that speaks to the person you're writing to. Remember, you're writing this as if you're writing to one person. So speak in the singular vernacular, speak as if you're write as if you're speaking to one person, okay? Now, when you do that, you're going to get much higher response rates and much higher conversion rates, okay? The other thing too is put something in there about the area. Say, did you know that in Toronto, 50% of our residents pay rent, okay? If you're in Miho, if you're in West Hollywood, 82% of the people rent in West Hollywood. That's pretty freaking amazing, okay? So in any case, keep that in mind. This should be more about something that's important to the reader, not about us, okay? Okay, that's part 2, all right? Now part 3 is, the table of contents is pretty obvious, all right? Part 3 is you want to give them a real life example. Basically, we call this the story part, okay? So Kiana, and for everybody else, you have my permission to use my story. This is an example of a property I bought and sold many years ago. And all I wanted to do is give the readers an example of what I mean when I say you can make money investing in real estate, okay? Anybody would understand what that means conceptually. You can make money investing in real estate. The difference is instead of giving them a postcard or a glossy bifold or trifold, is number one, give them this booklet, but number 2 is give them a real life example in the booklet, okay? So instead of saying, quote unquote, you can make money investing in real estate and I can help you do it, give them an actual example. So this example here, if you notice, has the initial pro forma. First I give them definition of terms, all right? And then I give them the initial pro forma on the property when I purchased it, okay? And then later on, I gave them the pro forma on the property when I sold it. So I gave them pro forma on the initial purchase and pro forma on the final sale, okay? And then I gave them everything in between. I gave them a summary. Here's what happened. Here's the basic lowdown on how this whole transaction shook loose on the purchase, on the sale, and everything in between. And you can see I quite easily turned $5,000 into $70,000 in profit in 11 years, okay? And I also gave them a lot more details down here. And I just basically was pointing out, the logic behind investing in rental properties versus the stock market. I'm not knocking the stock market. It's just the fact is we have no control over the stock market, but we do have control over our own real estate, okay? Big, big difference. All right, now the next thing is samples of inventory, okay? This is part 4, so please just write this down. You want to provide samples of properties in your area that you think might make a good investment, okay? They could be sold properties, they could be active listings, they could be under contract. I learned to give them a variety. I didn't want to just always give them my listings because then they would think, well, I'm just in it just to sell my own listings, okay? What I would do is I give them a variety of properties, not all mine. That way they could see, they could determine that in fact I do have their best interests in mind, okay? And also one key factor of this booklet, guys, is it is not intended to sell properties. The booklet is intended to establish relationships, okay? Now you might in fact actually sell a property as a result of using this booklet, but the primary reason for the booklet is to establish relationship, okay? If you notice here, there's a variety of properties. In this example, I was approaching this group of doctors who told me that they wanted they wanted multi-unit properties. They actually wanted a portfolio, is what they said. So I put these all together and showed them. Okay, here's some examples of properties that you can in this area that exemplify what's possible in this area. Okay. In any case, what I'm getting is number 4 should be samples of properties, okay? Samples of properties. That's number 4. And you do have to put in your own samples in here. Don't use my examples, okay? Grab examples from your area okay, that represent your area. Because if you use examples from the area that I was in when I did this, your clients are not, it's not going to resonate with them. We're going to say, wait a minute, well, how can I get a 90-unit building for 400,000 bucks? I want that. And the fact is this was in a town called Bellevue, not in Toronto or Montreal or Boston or, you know, Philadelphia or wherever you might be. Okay, they should be reflective of your area is the main point there. Okay, now probably one more sample here, then we're going to get into the next part of the booklet, which is number 5. Okay, which is a tool. You want to use a tool as a toolbox to show them how they can determine that something may in fact be a good investment. So what we're looking at is give your prospective readers, your prospect, a tool that they can use that will help them determine if a property would be a good deal or not. Okay, so if you notice, this gives you the income, which is this part up here, all the units bringing in the income, and then it gives you expenses down here. Okay, in case you get your you get your gross income, you figure out your vacancy rate. Right now, vacancy across U.S. and Canada on average is very, very low. It's like 2% or less, so very low vacancy rates, which is really good if you own rental real estate. Okay, we factored in expenses like property management. Okay, and the result, the income minus expenses, gives you your net operating income. Now remember, out of this NOI, net operating income, you've got to pay a loan typically if you have a loan. So then you subtract your monthly principal and interest payments from your NOI, and that resulting cash flow is what you would call your cash on cash return. Okay, really important ratio. In any case, those are really the 5 parts of the book. You know, I did at the end I would always give them you know, some words of inspiration, and also give them some testimonials from some of my clients. Okay, so let's get past this this worksheet here. So here's some of the testimonials. Some of these guys are, this guy was actually kind of a unique character. I don't know if I could even tell you what he did. Let's just say he did some pretty interesting things, worked for the government. And then we got a pilot and another investor who worked with his uncle. In any case, I would put testimonials in there, okay, and then give them one final set of words of wisdom there, okay, and then repeat my contact information. So that's the booklet, guys. Now, tonight what I wanted to do is go over how the booklet is constructed, okay. If you're interested, we can spend another session going over how you actually promote it and market it. We've done that a number of times, but let's first get into some of the questions that we have here. Okay, for the booklet, what is the best way to gather expense income data? Most agents don't know it. So Miho, you know, one of the things you want to try to always do and remember is when you're looking at sample properties, particularly the active ones, a lot of times an agent won't put the data in the listing itself, that they will put the data in attachments. Okay, like a lot of times if you go to your MLS system, you can click on attachments, and you can download the P&L statements, which are profit and loss statements for those properties, expense data, rent rolls, things like that. Now, if you don't get that, you might not want to use that property as an example. But what you can do is look for properties that do provide financial data, and if they're active, you can always call the listing agent and say, look, I'm interested in this property, but I'm not going to be able to get anybody there unless you give me some basic financials. Okay, rent roll, P&L for 3 years, minimum that. I always ask for the Schedule E of their tax returns also for the last 3 years. Okay, because the fact is no real investor is going to invest in a property or even take the time to look at it until they have the actual financials. Why would they go through all the work only to get the financials later on and find out that the property doesn't work? The fact is if a buyer needs a loan, the lender is going to also need that financial data. So it's in their best interest to get that data right up front. Okay, don't waste your time with all those people that don't know what they're doing. Now, having said that, absolutely, there's certain agents they'll get a lucky deal, they'll get an investor deal, because it landed in their lap, they got it referred to them, they really don't know what they're doing, they don't even know to ask for the financial data, okay? I mean, you guys certainly do. Matter of fact, if you look at any of my old listings, you'll see I provided a lot of data, a lot of income expense data, because I wanted people to make intelligent decisions as far as whether or not to pursue that property, number one. So that number two, I wasn't wasting my time with a bunch of tire kickers. I actually ended up working with real investors who could be qualified, and I did that by loading up all of my financial data on the properties I was selling. So in any case, Miho, in your area, you know, you're going to have some inventory on the MLS, no doubt about it. But a lot of our investor inventory, guys, whether you're in LA or anywhere else, quite frankly, is not on the MLS. In fact, in most cases, more investor transactions occur outside the MLS. Okay, so you can't. You have to use other tools like the letter, for example, to drum up inventory for your clients. And before you ever take a listing, an investor listing, always insist on getting that financial data, because you know people are going to bug you for it. Number one, you know that the lender is eventually going to need it, so they might as well provide it up front and eliminate all the tire kickers and all the waste and all the the unbelievable inefficient use of time by not having it. So in any case, sorry to beat that horse to death there, but you can get financial data, not all the time, but enough times that you'll have enough samples for your booklet. Okay, let's see, Genevieve. Hey, Genevieve. Okay, if we don't have testimonials, what do we do? So Genevieve, don't put any so you don't make anything up. Eventually, you're going to have a testimonial. The fact is, all you need is your first client, and your first client will lead to your first testimonial. Then you put that testimonial in the back of your next batch of booklets, and now you've got a testimonial, and then it starts to snowball from there. I mean, when I was 100% in production, and I just played around just for fun to set up a Zillow account, because I wanted to see how it worked, and I did the version where you actually do pay. And I asked all my clients if they would do a Zillow review for me. You wouldn't believe the outpouring, and we're talking several dozen of them gave me his testimonials, and half of them weren't even for investors. They were just owner-occupants. But at the time, I was doing owner-occupant transactions as much as I was doing investor transactions, okay? So in any case, right now you would just not have a testimonials page. It's not the end of the world. In fact, in most cases, people don't even recognize that something's not there. But when you do get testimonials, absolutely put them in there, because it does look impressive. It increases the trust. Social proof increases the trust as far as how much these prospects are trusting you. Now, it's also, if you want to think about it, Genevieve, you probably can very easily get some testimonials. If you're brand new, yes, you're not going to have any paid clients, but you can have somebody, a colleague, vouch for your character. That's all you do is just say, I've known Genevieve for years, absolutely outstanding citizen, intelligent, smart, master of her trade, and that's a testimonial right there. Doesn't say anything at all about she helped me buy my first house or she helped me sell my last duplex. You don't have to say that. You just want somebody vouching for your credibility, okay, and your character. Now later on, you will get some actual what we call meat and potatoes testimonials, which is Genevieve helped me buy my first duplex. We just sold it through Genevieve because she's really good at selling properties, and as a result of the profit, we just bought a fourplex through Genevieve. So what I'm getting at is, Genevieve, with investors, it's easier to get repeat transactions, which make for really good testimonials, okay? Excellent question, by the way. Thank you for asking that. Okay, let's see, Genevieve, I am still a student. Well, Genevieve, you know what? I think we should do a strategy call, because it has been just a little bit more than a month. So I want to get you started. So let's do a strategy call, Genevieve. We'll figure out where you are, where you want to go, and what the very best next step is, okay? I do remember you're brand new, by the way, so I'm glad that you're doing this. Okay, Miho says, it is called P&L, profit and loss. Yeah, so Miho, you're asking for P&L, which is profit and loss. You want to also ask for rent rolls. Now, the reason why rent rolls is important, certainly your P&L is going to include what that person made in rents, no doubt about it, okay? But rent rolls is specific just to the rents coming in, and it's a chart that shows you all the units across the top and all the tenants down the side. And or I'm sorry, the properties and underneath the properties will all be down the side. Those are your rows. Across the top, your columns are your months. So you would have, January, February, March, April, all the way down the line. And what happens is in a rent roll, it shows you in the cells how much rent was collected and the date it was collected. So if you look at the rent rolls and you see collection dates all over the place, scattered all throughout the month, that means that property is being mismanaged. It's poorly managed, and the landlord is just struggling collecting rents. It doesn't mean it's a bad property. It just means that manager is being too soft, okay? But it also shows you where there's complete gaps, where there's months that are missing. Those are vacancies. Even if somebody's living there, if they're not paying their rent, that's actually worse than a vacancy, because now somebody's putting wear and tear on the property and they're not paying the rent. So what you're looking for, guys, in the rent roll is gaps in performance, because that's going to reflect directly to your bottom line, you or your client. So if you see a lot of gaps in a rent roll, buyer beware. You want to definitely inquire further. In fact, I will tell you this, guys, you want to write this down. If you're ever looking at a P&L and you're looking at the associated rent rolls, and the rent rolls you see a lot of gaps, go visit your local courthouse and ask them if they can pull up records. You can sometimes do it yourself. You can go to public records online, key in the property address, and see how many landlord-tenant cases have been filed on that property or from the property, okay? Now, if you see a long history of landlord-tenant cases on that property, that's going to explain why you have so many gaps in the rent roll. Those are people not paying rent and having to go to court to either pay up or face the music. So the more gaps you have in the rent rolls, always look at the public records, the court records, and see for that property how many landlord-tenant cases there have been, and that sometimes will give you a pretty good idea that the landlord not only is not a good manager, maybe not a good bookkeeper either, more importantly is they're probably letting in people they should not be letting in. They're not doing a proper job of screening for tenants, which is really, really important. That's in fact, when it comes to having rentals, perhaps the most important activity you could ever be engaged in is screening the tenants. I see more people leave more money on the table because they just let anybody in that shows up with money. You cannot, definitely not do that. In fact, there's a book on this we call Rental Profits Without the Pain. In fact, it's free to all of you. It's on the My Investment Services website. Here, let's go back here. It's on the My Investment Services website. And if you look, let me, right there in the Premier Books, Rental Profits Without the Pain. There's another one, a sister book called Turning Rental Problems into Real Estate Profits. Cool thing about that is it shows you once you already have properties, how do you actually minimize the problems and turn them into profits. Okay, there's things you can do that are really going to blow your socks off when you see some of the things that you're able to do to increase profits. Okay, so back to the where we were. When it comes to let me just go back where we were here. Back to the book. That's where we finished off. Okay, so when you're doing the booklet, guys, it's very, very important that you customize it for yourself. It doesn't take that long, but more importantly, when you're finished it, please send it to me so I can critique it with you, okay? Now, in any case, back to here. Let me just make sure we got any more questions. Yes, Miho's asking for 3 years. Yes, you want the financials for 3 years. Always go back 3 years, all right? Let's see, Michael O'Neill. Hey, Michael. Thanks a ton, Gary. Sorry, fortunately have to leave a little early. No problem, Michael. Good to see you, buddy. Okay. So let's see. This is for Mark Hamilton. Hey, Mark. How you doing, buddy? Mark is asking, okay, so do you stay away from that mismanaged property or buy it and change things to make it? Yeah. So, Mark, excellent question. We actually like mismanaged properties better than we like a lot of deferred maintenance, okay? Deferred maintenance can be quite costly because while you're repairing properties, particularly rentals, you may not be able to have people in there living there while you're doing a remodeling. And that means you're not only you do not have rents coming in, you've also got a lot of expenses going out. So we actually learned over the years, it's between the two, I would rather buy a mismanaged property, because I know that person is going under they're under a lot of stress. They want to sell. To them, the whole thing just stinks. They got people stiffing them on the rent. All kinds of bad things are happening. I know through experience and through proper management that we can manage that property back to profitability, and also have higher collection rates and lower vacancy rates and lower rates of missed or not non-payments of rent. So in fact, we've got a really good track record of buying mismanaged properties for a fraction of what they're really worth in the real world. And then we have to go in there and play, the new sheriffs in town. And what we do is we take the most offensive tenant and make him the biggest poster child, and get him and go through the proper channels, of course, do it legally, but make an example out of them, and then work on the next one. Okay. And if you're really good, you can do them all at the same time. Just be prepared that you might have to suffer some low net operating income months while you're doing that. So if you can boot out 1/3 of your tenants and be able to keep the place afloat as a result, by all means do it. But we generally had better luck doing a few of the bad ones at first and work our way down the line, and it set the example, because some of the other ones might be marginal. They could be pretty good tenants. They just saw that other people were getting away with murder, and they decided to do it themselves. Who's gonna the landlord's going to let them stay there. He's going to listen to all the stories, all that stuff. People get conditioned. You get what you asked for, and if you condition your tenants to pay late and get away with it, guess what? They're going to keep paying late, and even more of them will. So in any case, Mark, excellent question, because we absolutely look for the ones that are mismanaged more so than the ones with a lot of deferred maintenance. By the way, mismanagement, it's not just mismanagement. We could also look for properties where maybe there was a decedent in the family, and so maybe heirs have this property that they don't really know what to do with. Could be that they're behind on their property taxes. There's a number of factors we'll look at, and we can find all the information by going online. Okay, so Mihu's asking, okay, Gary, for your ebook, is it okay to use information from our books and provide it to our clients? Absolutely. Yeah, so Mihu, we do encourage you to share with them things like school report, calculators, spreadsheets, anything that we give you guys, our students, to learn yourselves and to use is really intended, at least indirectly, to share with your clients. Absolutely share this stuff with your clients. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's one of the hallmarks of our program is we don't just give you this to you to keep to yourselves. We actually intend you to, the intention is for you to share it with your clients. So in any case, guys, we actually got through it all tonight. I'm glad we were able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. So we went over Paul Sheehan's questions on cap rate, net operating income, ARV, things like that, and then we went over Keona's question on how do we actually create the booklet. What I want you to do is, if you could please, send me emails with your questions, okay? Because it gives me what I need to prepare you for me to prepare for the next webinars, right? So we're saying, thank you very much, Gary. Your tools and books are beyond amazing. Well, thank you. Hey, by the way, when I was there back in the last winter and spring, Miho, and I was at the Studio City office. I think that's where you were, but I know you came from doggone, I can't remember your team leader's name, but that was from the year before. So I know you're really, really close to Calabasas and Woodland Hills. So we're going to be close. So you, me, and Cedric, maybe we can all get together, and some of the M1 guys too are on here. Billy Maloney lives up there. Jackie lives up there. Jackie's right down the let's see, Ventana Canyon Road. We're going to be really close to each other, and I love it out there, and I can't wait to get that out there. So in any case, guys, I appreciate you being on board. Oh, we got one more question. Hang on one second. This is from Abby. Hey, Abby. Abby is brand new. Okay, Gary, as a new student, where should I begin to start my journey of making progress in knowledge and skills? Hey, Abby, excellent question. One of the first things I would do is once you get through Module 1 and you've got your school report built and you know how to use Melissa data, for example, go into Module 2 and learn the calculations. Learn the spreadsheets and the calculators for cash flow and practice with examples, even just make up numbers. You definitely want to practice those tools, guys, because if you're going to share them with your clients, like we just suggested with Miho, is you want to know how they work. So don't just give them to them and say, here, you can use these. Definitely practice using them, and then it builds up your competence, which builds your confidence, and you'll find yourself actually knowing more than you think you do, okay? So that's an excellent question. Thank you very much, Abby. Okay, Mark, thanks, Gary, for your time tonight. You're welcome, Mark. I'm glad to do it. I'm glad you're on board. Brian, when will you be in Dallas, Fort Worth area? Brian, I'm not sure when I'm going to be back there. It could be it could be in the spring. I know I've got to go to San Antonio, so maybe what I'll do is I'll stop in, maybe spend a weekend in Dallas, and you know, if you're doing a workshop or something like that, we can maybe do a Saturday event. I did that in Albuquerque, by the way, back on Saturday, June 3rd. We did a whole day event for a couple different real estate offices and a couple of investor groups. We just brought them all together. I mean, that was awesome. In fact, one of our students just did that up in Hamilton, Canada, Brian, and she combined the booklet with the workshop and landed 20 people right out of the gate. It was amazing. Okay, Abby's asking, where's Module 1? So, Abby, the email that Beverly sent you when you first signed up gave you access to the training platform, which is Digital Chalk. In there, you click on Module 1 right there. That's how you get it. So look for the email from Beverly. It'll lead you right to it, okay? Brian, okay, I can find your agents. Let's see. I can find 4 agents to attend and partner as well. Hey, Brian, let's do a strategy call, man. Yeah, set up a strategy call, and we'll go into a lot more detail on that, okay? You're welcome, Abby. And Abby, I'm so glad you're on board, and I'm glad to be working with you, and you too, Brian, and for everybody else too. Tonight was a great turnout, guys. A lot of people were on. I appreciate you feeding me questions like this, because the more you ask, the more we know how to prepare for you, okay? So like next week's webinar, I probably will, I've got to go back over my notes, but if you want to suggest content, please let me know, okay? In the meantime, guys, I hope you have an awesome rest of the week and a beautiful weekend coming up. God bless you and your families, and we'll see you all next week, by the way, which is going to be another Monday night, by the way. How about that? So next Monday night, I'll be in Westchester, Philadelphia area, Pennsylvania. Okay, guys, take care and God bless. Bye-bye.